Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, wherever it is you are watching. I am Dan Turchin, CEO of InsightFinder, the AI first system of intelligence for IT operations. And I'm really excited to introduce you to our company, our product, and equally important, our vision over the next half hour or so. So glad you could join us. At InsightFinder, our life's work is using AI to make people the best versions of themselves. I know that seems a little bit counterintuitive. We firmly believe that it's the fusion of humans and machine intelligence that really is changing the world. We're proud to be a part of that. Personally, I've been in this space for about 23 years, and seeing how AI has evolved and impacted the lives of so many people truly is inspirational. We're really proud of the work that we're doing. Now, let's set the stage for today's discussion. As an IT ops community, truth is we've toiled in obscurity for most of the past, say, decade. We migrated traditional NOCs to DevOps. We migrated kind of heavy iron to VMs and containers. We've transitioned from kind of monolithic application architectures to microservices-based architectures and kind of ephemeral servers. And all the while, without adding a ton of resources and oftentimes without missing SLAs. Pretty impressive. Yet our job keeps getting harder and the business keeps demanding more. And the truth is, all of those changes happened really before the pandemic hit. And then it created this need for us to find the next kind of the next gear. We're here today because our colleagues and customers are counting on us. They're counting on us to get their work done. They're counting on us to shop from home, to access their health records, to keep them safe. It's a big responsibility. We're here to change the world with data. Today is not about another vendor pitch or even the next great AI technology. Today really is about how we as an IT ops community rise to the challenge of improving not just work life, but truly life for the next billion employees. Now, in terms of some of the key questions that we'll answer in today's session, why are we here? And I don't mean here in terms of the webcast, but no, really, why are we here? How is AI being used to help make the job of IT ops just a little bit more scalable? What's the future of intelligent technology? And perhaps most important, we're going to try to leave you with some actionable advice. How can you go and lead your organization's first AI initiative? So Gartner, the esteemed analyst, says this about the role of AI for IT ops. Machine data volumes increasing exponentially. To ensure system availability, IT operators should use AI to detect anomalies and prevent outages. Gartner, we couldn't have said it better ourselves. A lot of that kind of sets the stage for what we're going to be talking about. But why now? I mentioned in that kind of preamble, my perspective on what's changing, and again, that's independent of the pandemic. But here are a few statistics that are worth keeping in mind as we get deeper into discussion. So the cost of downtime, it's increasing by orders of magnitude. So on average, IDC, another analyst firm, says the cost of downtime for enterprises is about $100,000 per hour. We all know, certainly from our day-to-day roles, that the volume of machine data is only increasing. I pulled out this statistic. I think it's impressive. 90% of all data on the planet was created in the past 2 years. 86% of consumers say they're willing to pay more for a better experience, and that's really where our role as IT ops leaders comes in. And then lastly, when polled, I believe, this was also from a recent Gartner research, 56% of CEOs attribute their revenue growth in 2020, the pandemic year, to digital channels. Frankly, I'm wondering about the other 44% that say their revenue increase has not been attributable to digital channels, but that's for another discussion. So we thought one thing that might be useful is just initially to set the stage by talking about key questions to ask when you're looking at kind of AI first systems of intelligence. Oftentimes we use the awfully cliched term AI ops, so AI for IT operations. But But key questions to keep in mind: will this solution improve our business KPIs? So we encourage you to think business first. So think about KPIs starting with customer satisfaction, starting with reduced downtime, starting with shareholder value, starting with profitability, the things that really drive the growth of your business, the things that determine your competitive advantage. Those are the questions you should ask. Just because we're talking about AI or technology doesn't give us license to forget what really matters to the business, because that's why we're here. What resources are required to train the AI? Very important. So you should not, if the answer from the vendor is, you need to make sure you have at least a team of 3 data scientists on staff, wrong answer. I'd immediately start talking to the next vendor. The answer is, with the right architecture and the right approach to using AI for IT operations, you shouldn't need a team of data scientists. How much historical data is required? Well, again, it's kind of a trick question, because if you've got the right architecture, you shouldn't need a lot of historical data. In fact, the system should be smart enough to learn based on real-time streams of data. That's really the right answer. Will it detect anomalies across logs and metrics? So believe it or not, a lot of the legacy systems out there that were applying some kind of what we called back in the day intelligence, but wasn't really very intelligent, actually would just detect anomalies across a single data source. So look for particularly anomalous patterns in machine metrics, and oftentimes just a single metric. So think about, the best way to detect anomalies in your machine data. Obviously, you need to combine data sources like metrics, logs. It'd be great if it could even overlay change events to be able to tell you when an unplanned change led to an incident. What does it do beyond detecting related logs or metrics? Well, anomaly detection it's a broad field that can be used for many things. Platforms that are designed for machine data and for IT operations will also predict future incidents. In fact, you may be able to get hours of lead time of notice before the incident even occurs. And then the other key aspect of a modern AI ops platform is it should also be able to automate the process of analyzing the root cause of incidents. So expect a lot from an AI ops platform. That's what it really means to apply AI across the life cycle of an incident. Can it process the volume of data we generate? That's pretty important. You're going to want to look for a system that can span hundreds of thousands of dimensions, so systems, instances, as well as metrics per system or instance. So make sure that it's prepared to perform based on the volume of data you're going to generate. And then lastly, and back to the theme of business value, how quickly will it pay for itself? So make sure, if you're in that camp of the $100,000 per hour, that whatever you're spending on the solution is going to cost well south of the $100,000 of dollars, or whatever it is you plan to save per month. So spending a little bit more time on exactly not just the questions to ask, but how to evaluate various AI ops solutions. So usability, obviously a key component. So you want to make sure that the system is self-learning. What's the benefit of AI if you need to constantly manually tune the algorithms or select features from the data? It's not going to work. Accuracy. So obviously anomaly detection as kind of a science is only valuable if you trust the integrity of the algorithms to accurately detect anomalies. And when I say detect anomalies, I mean less noise. The reason we got here in the first place is because this machine data generated dramatically too much noise for any human to be able to deal with. Oftentimes, 90% of the alerts that we get in our inbox are false alarms. So you want to make sure that you pick a platform that has algorithms that are highly tuned to your specific business environment, the kinds of problems that you encounter. Scalability. So I mentioned previously, you want to make sure that the system is prepared to work at your scale. Presumably many of you on this call are representing enterprises or large organizations. So you really want to press on things like the number of dimensions that the algorithms are capable of supporting in terms of volume of data processing. You want to make sure that things like logs, if you're ingesting raw logs via a stream, that's a ton of data. So ask your vendor, what level of compression am I going to get? And hopefully that's lossless compression so that you can effectively ingest logs as well as metrics and other data sources. Extensibility, so you want to make sure that the system is data agnostic. AI, by its very nature, should be smart enough to extract patterns, even when it hasn't seen the pattern in advance, or even when it hasn't seen the data. So this could come from structured data like metrics, unstructured data like logs. It shouldn't matter. The right platform should be able to identify that for you. And lastly, performance. So mention the importance of making sure that the system is ready to behave well in your environment. You may be in an environment where most of your infrastructure has moved to the cloud. So you want to make sure that the vendor can scale horizontally to accommodate the changing demands of your data volumes, but also your infrastructure. Oftentimes, I mentioned, up front, we're dealing with ephemeral infrastructure, serverless computing, instances that come up and down. Make sure your vendor is prepared to perform well in that kind of in dynamic environment in which you live. So the way to think about the value that you'll get out of an AI solution is in terms of automating the life cycle of an IT operational incident. And specifically what that means is following the life cycle by wrapping a layer of intelligence kind of horizontally across all the key processes. So that's obviously being able to predict via the anomaly detection that I was referring to, predict when an incident is going to occur even before it's happened, and use that time, that lead time before the incident occurs, to investigate the root cause. And ideally, you want the system to be able to learn continuously so that it can recommend what remediation action to take so that eventually you're comfortable with the system auto-remediating issues. Zero impact, hours before an incident occurs, and the actions, which get smarter all the time, are taken because you trust the AI to auto-remediate on your behalf. Lastly, the system should be capable of annotating, so essentially learning from or adding metadata to each incident. As it's resolved, the system should continuously get smarter. Think of it like the equivalent of adding another 1,000 bodies to your IT ops team. Instead of doing that, you add a layer of AI-driven intelligence. And then lastly, make sure that the system is capable of ingesting all the data that you need to be able to prevent subsequent issues. Now, I'm a little biased, so what we've shared in terms of the right approach to applying intelligence to the IT ops lifecycle is all screenshots from the InsightFinder product, which I'm going to go ahead and show you. But even outside of InsightFinder, these are the kinds of expectations that you should have with regard to evaluation of an AI ops platform. So in terms of specific capabilities of the platform, so you want to make sure that the algorithms use unsupervised machine learning. That's really important because, newsflash, you're not going to hand label data and feed, hand labeled historical data to the algorithm. Again, it would take a team of 10,000 people to continuously label the data in order to get accurate anomaly detection if you're using supervised machine learning. So it's got to be unsupervised. It's got to process streams of data, so real-time collection of data, whether that's your metrics, your logs, et cetera, because you know what? Outages don't wait. They don't arbitrarily delay themselves 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 30 minutes because your system isn't capable of doing anything but sampling data. In fact, you got to learn from the real-time streams of data, and it's really critical that those streams of data can cross sources. So you don't want to have to worry about if you're only monitoring metrics, or particularly maybe one kind of metric from a server, you're only going to see a tiny sliver of the anomalies that might be detected if you were to ingest all forms of data. You want to make sure the system gets smarter over time. We talked a little bit about that. You want to make sure that it can take into account the predicted incidents to be able to automate root cause analysis. And that's really important. So if we're not talking about machine data, or we're not talking about IT ops, there are lots of interesting uses for AI. But if we're specifically talking about the things that matter to you and to your job, it's really critical that we apply AI specifically to the parts of that life cycle that most impact your business outcomes. So that's anomaly detection, it's incident prediction, it's root cause analysis, it's continuous learning, but specifically to provide higher availability, better performance for your digital services. We at InsightFinder are quite proud of the fact that we've invested many hundreds of person years making sure that our technology rises to the challenge. Everything that I've talked about so far, we own a lot of the key IP, the intellectual property required to do this right. And I'll point out a few of the key patents in our portfolio. In fact, I talked about how as a team, this is our life's passion. Well, for the past 15 plus years, our founder and CTO, Helen Gu, has been working to make sure that we build a scalable system. Even before it was fashionable to do this stuff, we didn't even envision, when Dr. Gu was beginning her research, what kinds of IP would be required to do AI ops at scale. Now we know, and thankfully InsightFinder has the anomaly detection patents, the ability to do multivariate analysis across data sources, the ability to recommend the probable root cause of incidents. These are all core technologies. They're represented by over 80 papers that have been published by Helen's research groups. We're really proud of the fact that we have strong conviction around there being a right way to do this, and we certainly leverage all of the academic work that our team has done over the years to make sure this is the most robust, the most scalable approach to applying AI to IT operations. Now, with that said, I think why we're here is really to talk about what's ahead, but it turns out the future of IT is kind of happening now. And I thought I'd give you a quick kind of a nickel tour of how customers are using InsightFinder to deploy AI for IT ops at scale. I thought I'd share a little bit of a story for you just to put this in context. So I realize you're looking at a timeline and you've seen a lot of timelines, but let me tell you the power of this one. So this is what we call the unified health view, the timeline view within InsightFinder. I log in, and for the sake of today's demo, let's say I am an IT operator and I work at a lovely company called Citizen Kane. And Citizen Kane is about to disrupt the smart cane market. So you might know them as walking sticks, but now, thanks to Citizen Kane's technology, we've embedded lasers in the walking stick so that for the visually impaired, they're able to get notified via an audible chirping about any dangers around them. So lives are at stake if, let's say, my walking cane, isn't working, or let's say I'm really depending on my relative getting their cane online, and having it delivered by Friday. This is a lot of responsibility for the IT ops team, and in this case, we're going to say it's Cyber Monday, and this is what my health view looks like at Citizen Kane as an owner of IT ops. So I'm going to point out how I can read the data in InsightFinder like a book. So first I'll point out that this Citizen Kane system is being fed data from a variety of projects. So we have some change events, we've got some metrics, we've got some logs, we've got some telemetry coming in from web servers. So all of the key data sources that make up this system, the e-commerce system for Citizen Kane, are pulled into InsightFinder in advance. Now, I'll share a couple different examples. One where, let's say it's a new set of issues and InsightFinder detects a pattern of anomalies that it hasn't seen before and detects that there's an incident that's going to occur. So in this case, the orange diamond represents a change event. So some code was deployed through Jenkins. Now the code was successfully deployed, but shortly after, let me show you what happens. So we see, so the depth of this dot represents the degree to which that data is anomalous. So we see shortly, about an hour after that code was pushed. So if I go and do a little investigation, okay, now I'm starting to learn some things about what's going on here. So there was in fact pattern of anomalous data. I see it's a combination of some metric anomalies. Oh, interesting. So there's a rare pattern generated by some anomalies in alert data, or sorry, log data. So checkout service exception, well, that's not good. I got to make sure every cane is able to be ordered online. And let's maybe learn a little bit about what's going on here with some of these metrics. So, ooh, that's not good. So CPU spiked 143.8% above normal. And let's see. Well, that's not good. So it looks like available memory dropped at the same time, and that was concurrent with the checkout service not being available. So you see how without being able to combine the learning across metrics and logs, it's really hard to investigate this issue. So let's go ahead and drill down. Let's go ahead and look at a line chart of that metric anomaly. And so this is specifically that CPU. Oh, interesting. So here we see this spike in CPU roughly around the time that shortly after the code was pushed. Let's see. And just to make sure we understand what's going on, let's maybe take a look at that decrease in available memory. And let's see if that gives us some more indication about what's going on. Yeah, okay, so we can confirm now that the available memory dropped roughly concurrent with the CPU spike. And what that tells us is there's some resource contention. And we know also from looking at the related log, this is related to the checkout service. So we want to go ahead and learn a bit more about this. Now, in this case, this red bubble indicates that there was a detected incident. So the system recommended some probable root causes, and we'll take a look at those. But it hadn't yet learned the pattern, so it wasn't ready to take any kind of autonomous action. But if we go ahead and look at, let's see, so here's a deeper dive. So this is looking at, so we're now in the root cause analysis tab. And what we can see is a variety of actions that InsightFinder recommended. So again, unsupervised machine learning, this is real intelligence. So this is the system looking at the node, this particular node that this incident occurred on, and recommending some probable root causes. So pretty smart. Now, a second example, so let's say a similar bit of code was deployed through Jenkins. Again, the code deployment was successful, but this sure feels like the root cause of the previous detected incident. So now what we're going to say is, wouldn't it be great if the system was smart enough to go ahead and detect that previous set of patterns, that anomalous data, and this time it's learned what action to take. So imagine if your life was this easy, that problems that were detected once or maybe twice, the second or third time, the system learned without any intervention from a data scientist or an IT operator, and it was able to, look here, detect the source of the problem, detect the pattern, production 911, yep, just like what we saw previously, checkout server, return to 500 error, only this time it was able to detect the likely root cause and recommend some action to take. In this case, it took the action automatically. That's what that icon represents on the timeline. Okay, that pointing finger says, you know what? We went ahead and auto-remediated. We reversed the buggy deployment, and what's more important, we got a green thumb back. Okay, that detected incident was now fixed, and it was fixed without any human intervention. Okay, that's the benefit of AI-first systems of intelligence. Okay, like I mentioned, talking about the life cycle, that shows how the most accurate anomaly detection across sources is able to detect and ultimately predict events before they occur, recommend the probable root cause, and ultimately take auto-remediation action to be able to fix problems before anyone is impacted. Now, want to wrap up the demo with a little bit of insight, pun intended, into what you can expect from algorithms when they're optimized for these kinds of use cases. And I thought for this example, I would share with you two specific cases. One where we're going to show you the performance of the InsightFinder holistic algorithm, and then we'll compare it in a second example to a more traditional unsupervised machine learning algorithm, specifically DBScan. DBScan, by the way, is a very popular algorithm. It's used by systems like Netflix and Facebook. But we'll show you in a minute how it may not be all that it's cut out to be when compared with a system like InsightFinder. So in this case, I ran the holistic model against just a sample of typical testing data. And this is what we get back from this particular sample of data. We see various kinds of anomaly patterns detected. And if we just drill down into one particular metric, in this case CPU, we can see how, in this case, on a node-by-node level, we can actually determine what is going on. So each of these colors represents a different node, and I can go ahead and see for a particular time period, for a particular incident across all of these metrics and all of these nodes at scale exactly what was going on so that I can understand this pattern of anomalies. Okay, so when the holistic algorithm from InsightFinder looks at data, in this case, it finds a rich set of patterns across all of these metrics that were used as part of that test data set. Now, by comparison, if I run that same data set, the same test data set, against that second option, I mentioned the DBScan clustering algorithm, look at what I get. Same data, very different results. Look at the anomaly degree. So what that DBScan algorithm is saying is, you know what? It looks like everything is a very high degree of anomaly. And you saw by comparison, InsightFinder was smart enough to pick out the specific anomalies. It doesn't just say everything's a 1, everything looks anomalous, right? So that's not going to be very useful. And unfortunately, as an IT operator, I'm not an expert in how to tune the parameters of the DBScan algorithm. So maybe I go back and I say I want to use DBScan, but I think maybe my epsilon score was too low. Maybe that was the problem. So let's say I set it to 100. I run this same model again, and this is the output from changing that epsilon score from 1 to 100. This doesn't look very good. One parameter tuned differently, and all of a sudden, nothing's an anomaly. So this says the anomaly degree, nope, didn't find any anomalies, everything looks great. Meanwhile, we obviously saw that InsightFinder was able to detect all the kinds of things that we talked about in the demo, right? A checkout server was down. How do we know? Because we looked at a CPU metric, we looked at an available memory metric, we looked at the logs. A lot of learning from ingesting all these rich sources of data, and by the way, combining that with the change events. So that's the benefit of using not just the holistic algorithm from InsightFinder, but combining it with this architecture, unsupervised machine learning, taking in streams of data, looking across multiple variables. It's capable of supporting hundreds of thousands of simultaneous dimensions. That's the kind of intelligence you should expect from an AI-first system of intelligence. So what I've shown you in this quick demo is, maybe about 1% of what InsightFinder does, but I thought, I at least wanted to share with you a few of the highlights. With that said, I wanted to wrap up just by talking a little bit about how the system is used in the, quote, real world, the kinds of results that our customers are getting, and then send you off with hopefully some actionable advice. So many of the largest, most complex organizations on the planet use InsightFinder today to generate the kinds of business outcomes that you would expect. So higher availability, better performance, better user experiences. I talked at the outset about the fusion of human and machine intelligence. That's what really is going to lead to a better work world, better life for every human being. And when we look at things like what Credit Suisse is doing to improve the integrity of financial applications, or what China Mobile does with InsightFinder to support 900 million wireless subscribers, or the way Dell supports some of their biggest, most strategic external customers, the MSP managed service provider, division within Dell, we're really inspired. It makes it easy to do the hard work that we're doing to continue growing the patent portfolio that we have, because we see billions of lives being changed every day through the power of InsightFinder. Now, in terms of leaving you with some actionable next steps, so we'd obviously love to be part of your journey. Hopefully you get a sense for how passionate we are about this and making AI ops work for you in your environment. Continue your learning. So go to our resources page, sign up for a free trial of InsightFinder, but make this the start of your journey. So take it upon yourself to educate your team. So help them understand that, again, it's that fusion of human and machine intelligence that's going to make us all smarter. Don't fear the bot. This isn't about the bot apocalypse. This is about AI making everyone's lives better. Document the business case, figure out what your objectives are. I mentioned some key questions to ask at the top of the session. Have a business case, prove the concept. So again, we love it if you use InsightFinder, but whatever technology you select, be prepared to have some metrics in mind, prove the concept, demonstrate to your stakeholders, not with words, but with actions and with metrics, the value of applying AI to IT operations. And maybe last and most important, be prepared for when you're credited with giving back your organization, whether it's tens of thousands of hours per month or millions of dollars in cost savings or better customer experiences. I guarantee you, one of the least of the benefits is that you're going to get promoted, and you will be recognized with having really done something transformational for the business. So before we open up for Q&A, I'll leave you with perhaps one of my favorite quotes when we talk about the impact that AI is having on making lives better. What can be predicted is better left to machines, but what requires intuition or judgment is better left to humans. Everything we've talked about today is an example of how AI, intelligent technologies, are truly the future, but only when smart humans are there to control, to corral, to manage how AI technology is deployed. As a partnership between your organization and InsightFinder, we really feel like together we have an opportunity to do something disruptive that will improve your life, your career, but also certainly benefit your organization. Now, with that said, we've got a few minutes left. We can take a few questions if there are any out there. I did want to point you to the place to go to continue your journey. I mentioned kind of my point one in what's actionable. Continue your learning. Go to insightfinder.com/request-trial. We offer a free 7-day trial. In fact, you can see that Citizen Kane application. We've got a guided tour that'll walk you through. I mentioned I demonstrated about 1% of the key capabilities of InsightFinder. Well, we give you access to the other 99%. Just request the free trial, 7 days, and you can certainly do all the exploration and more that I showed in today's demo. Now, I see that we've got a lot of questions streaming in. Let me do my best. I'll get to a few, and then I want to make sure we get to a stopping point here in a few minutes. If we don't get to your question today, I assure you our team is at the ready. We'll follow up with you individually. So the first question is one I kind of talked through. Do we need a team of data scientists to manage InsightFinder? Absolutely not. And any vendor that tells you otherwise is wrong, because the fact is the benefit of AI, and certainly AI using unsupervised machine learning, is that you don't need to know, let's say, how to tune your epsilon parameter for your DB-scan algorithm. That's not something that's going to scale well for your business. It's going to lead to poor results. Likewise, any vendor that asks you to hand label historical data, probably not going to work. So any implication that data scientists are required to deploy AI ops at scale, probably not the right solution for your environment. Okay, I think this is broadly relevant. So we already have Splunk and CloudWatch. What else does InsightFinder do? So again, something we talked quite a bit about in the course of the demo and the overview. In addition to what metrics, let's say, you get from CloudWatch or the log analytics that you do in Splunk, that's kind of the starting point for InsightFinder. So what InsightFinder is going to do is really make those applications or that data intelligent. And it's going to do that by detecting anomalies, by predicting the incidents that those anomalies might cause by doing automated pattern extraction against the data that's coming in to InsightFinder from a Splunk or a CloudWatcher, et cetera. And then lastly, being able to predict the probable root cause of the incidents. But you can think of Splunk and CloudWatch as being kind of a place to collect raw data and do a little bit of kind of manual analytics. But it's really InsightFinder that's the system of intelligence that's going to give you kind of the business benefits from that data that's collected into those systems. Let's see, I'm going to get caned, pun intended, off the stage here in a minute, but I think I've got time for one more question. Okay, let's see, I'm going to pick this one again. If we didn't get to your question, make sure we answer it offline. We get too many noisy alerts from ServiceNow. Does InsightFinder integrate with ServiceNow? The answer is absolutely. Whether you're using ServiceNow or could be another source of incidents, another system of record, or another system of notifications. Maybe it's a PagerDuty or a Mir3 or an XMAT or something like that. You're absolutely going to want InsightFinder to, typically it's going to achieve 80 to 90% noise reduction. So those systems are notorious for generating a lot of false positive alerts. But what you're going to want to do is first filter those noisy alerts through InsightFinder so that by integration, let's say with ServiceNow, you can integrate with your CMDB, your topology maps. You can integrate with all of this other data that can enrich the incidents, combine that with the logs and the metrics and the change events going into InsightFinder, and have InsightFinder actually filter the noisy alerts and detect which incidents are actually actionable, so that even if, let's say, some customers, believe it or not, are still generating one incident for every machine event. Obviously, that's an insane process, but those that are better off just forwarding the raw incidents to InsightFinder for correlation, compression, add some intelligence to that stream of noisy incidents, and get back in exchange in your system of record just the clean, enriched incidents with, most importantly, a list of probable root causes like what we saw in the demo. Now, with that said, I know we didn't get to all of your questions, but our journey is just getting started. We will be following up with you. We will be making a video of this session available. We really look forward to learning about your environment and applying some of our passion for what we do, hopefully to improving your business outcomes.